Good morning, hope everyone's doing well. Here I am, sitting at the bus stop, bus is late, and I was about to start chanting my usual slogan where it almost never snows, it almost always rains, and the bus service is shit. Because, let's face it, that's what it usually is here in Norwich. But that's not why you called, no. There was something that came out just before I was going to go to bed, which is quite serious, as it just shows how far the state and of course the prison governor, was it Margaret Starfleet or Carfleet or whatever her bloody name is? I'm sure somebody will correct me in the comments, but basically this woman has found out that Richard Inman was planning to visit Tommy Robinson today, and the prison governor has decided they're not approving his request to visit Tommy. Apparently the card machine's not working. I mean, I'll take a free fucking bus ride any day of the week. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, the Richard Inman has been stopped from going to the prison to see Tommy. Now, Tommy has already made it quite clear how important these visits are for him, as it's his only real chance to interact with the real world. So you can probably imagine how much that's going to affect Tommy Robinson when it turns out he's not going to be able to come. Because do you honestly think they're going to tell Tommy Robinson that Richard Inman isn't coming? Like, fuck will they? They want Tommy Robinson to suffer in there, quite frankly. And there is no way he should be. I mean, already as is, the fact he's spent 3 months in solitary confinement when he shouldn't even be in a Category B prison at all. He should be in an open prison, and he certainly shouldn't be in a prison with a 41% Muslim population, where he's in the most danger. But they use that, the 41%, as an excuse to justify solitary confinement. And the law apparently says that you can't hold somebody in solitary confinement for more than 14 days. So, by effectively holding him in there for 3 months, they have been breaking the law for the last 2.5 months. Also, something else which I've mentioned maybe once or twice, I will have mentioned it in my live stream, but the other angle that I've been covering is the fact that we've seen the people who were part of the Southport riots part of the protests, you know, the ones who are going in and robbing Greggs and what have you, and getting their sausage rolls and what have you. I'm more of a bake person myself, but I digress. These people, the ones that were part of the violent side of the protests, which I do not condone at all, even they were allowed that 50-60% reduction in their sentences before they can be released. Has Tommy Robinson received that? And then I woke up. Actually, no, I woke up about 2 o'clock this morning because my throat was hurting something fucking awful because of something I did. Anyway, he hasn't been given that sentence reduction. Therefore, he has to serve the whole 9 months in prison. And I'd like to ask Keir the Traitor Starmer, as a human rights lawyer formerly, where's your concern for Tommy? Oh, that's right, you don't want him coming out because he is effectively the Baba Yaga. He is the boogeyman. He is practically John Wick at this point. He is politically assassinating his opponents. Obviously, his weapons aren't guns or knives or whatever, but rather word of mouth. His weapon is the truth. Keir the Traitor Starmer, on the other hand, his weapons are lies, libelous slander, and of course, betrayal. Because he is constantly stabbing the British people in the back. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me. It doesn't suit the narrative. Like I said, Tommy Robinson shouldn't even be in a Category B prison, let alone in prison for this contempt of court. Apparently, if what Richard Inman said is correct, we haven't had anybody who has been sent to prison for contempt of court since the 1940s. And there was me thinking that nobody had ever been to prison, basically. Which, if that's truly the case, then I'll put my hands up and say, I'll take note of that going forward, and I will be sure to mention that fact. Of course, if it turns out that nobody really has gone to prison, then obviously I'm going to continue saying what I am, quite frankly. But the way I see it is this prison governor, she needs to resign, because she has clearly shown that she does not know the law, number one. And number two, she is clearly stopping Richard Inman from being able to visit Tommy, which, again, this is being done for political reasons. She has actually said, in essence, she's worried that the content used when speaking to Tommy Robinson will go on social media. Her words. So she's basically afraid of getting her little bitch ass exposed. And yes, I will say it like that, because unlike a lot of people, I'm not going to sugarcoat a motherfucking thing. I am not going to mince my words. I'm going to say it exactly how it is, and I will do my best not to bullshit you. She is terrified of the idea that someone could go into Wood Hill Prison, speak to Tommy Robinson, find out what's going on, and then use that information to completely destroy her credibility. Just like that. That's what she's scared of. She's more scared of her position than she is scared of a man coming along with peaceful intentions to visit Tommy to make sure he's alright. Let's face it, he's not alright because he's having to go through 3 months of this shit and then another 6 to come. Well, all I have to say, Margaret, if that's your name, or Starfleet, or Carfleet, or whatever the fuck it is, I couldn't care less at this point. You disgust me. You absolutely disgust me. If you really cared about your prisoners, you'd be making sure Tommy Robinson is alive and well. And let me remind you, as a prison governor, as said, your duty is to keep your prisoners healthy and safe. By denying him his right to a variety of different foods, instead of just, well, instead of what you're doing now, which is he's only allowed to eat cans of tuna, he's not getting his nutritional needs. That's point one. And point two is, as I said near the start of the video, it's illegal to keep Tommy Robinson in solitary confinement for a longer period than 14 days. By breaching these two things, you are in breach of Article 3 of the Human Rights Act. This is torture of Tommy Robinson. You are treating him like a prisoner of fucking war. And what was his crime? He told the truth about Jamal. He put out a video that was already leaked by the US. He had full intention of following their draconian little restriction of you're not allowed to put out that documentary exposing our councils and the Labour government basically covering for Jamal and covering for all the nonsense and all that. That's why he was put in prison. It wasn't just the sake of, oh, we can say he broke the law. No, it was because he exposed the government and the establishment for what they truly are. Thank you. He exposed the establishment, stroke number one, for what they are doing. At least it's actually been a decent amount of time before I've had a stroke, rather than doing it in the first 60 fucking seconds. But, as I said, that's not why you called. The bottom line is that Richard Inman should have every right to visit that prison. And if this prison governor actually had any sense of integrity, she would have allowed it. She would have allowed Richard Inman to speak to Tommy Robinson. Because if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear, ma'am. If you really are as innocent as you want to make out to be, let him in. Let Richard Inman see Tommy Robinson. let us see that he's doing all right. Because last time I checked, Tommy put an email out basically saying that he finds the idea of another 6 months in solitary confinement suffocating. Now, if that isn't a cry for help from the man himself, I don't know what is. But then this is basically the punishment for Tommy Robinson for daring to go against the government. And we, the British people, demand the release of Tommy Robinson and all of the political prisoners who are serving jail time as we speak. Over 3,200 prisoners of political persecution by the state for opposing the government. It's time for all of these governors of these prisons to fucking grow a pair, quite frankly. If you really care about the well-being of your people, you'll release those political prisoners, rather than all the killers and the rapists and all the nonsense. Because I can tell you one thing, the only people who would dare to release the most dangerous people to society while locking up people who shout at the police or attack dogs are people who are mentally insane. We must have some big fucking idiots who are sitting in their positions of power thinking that it's perfectly acceptable to allow the most dangerous criminals out while locking up the people who are most infuriated by our treacherous establishment led by Keir the traitor Starmer. And yes, I did restrain myself, because what was about to come out of my mouth would not have been pleasant and probably would have broken YouTube's guidelines. Even I have to bite my tongue sometimes, but I do it within reason. Keir the traitor Starmer does not know what reason is. Just like this Woodhill governor does not know what doing things within reason is. We demand the release of all the political prisoners, and most importantly, the release of Tommy Robinson. Because as I've said before, if you truly are innocent and you are not worried about the consequences, if you have nothing to fear, then surely you have nothing to hide.